The true romantics. So hopefully I can keep this short because I think if I put too much information in it, a lot of the information, a lot of things are going to get lost, and I don't want that to happen. But I guess I could make part twos to mitigate that. So I'm going to try to keep it under 3 minutes and we'll go from there. So the true romantics. So I don't know if every guy has gone through this situation, but the run of the mill, situation where you have a relationship and you're with a woman and you are, let's say you're a year in, you can be 2 years, 3, 4, 5 years in, right? But then she will have a guy on the back burner for a couple of months and then she'll start a fight with you. But then the fight was really just a way for her to move to the new guy. But she had to figure out a very clever, weird way for her to dip without it causing, I don't know, it's almost like a rationalization for why she has to move on. I've noticed something, and not just me, this is something that I've heard from other people as well. Females, when it comes to situations that they have in relationships, when a relationship gets rocky, they're actually the ones least likely to stay and deal with the issues. They're more quick to run. They're more quick to go to like a very fearful, we can't do this, this is not going to work kind of thing. And then they just dip. Now, I'm talking about in situations where you have a relationship where, generally speaking, both sides are fairly healthy, right? This is within healthy relationships. This isn't because a lot of times you bring up the issue and a woman will go, "Oh, well, the guy I was dealing with was just an awful human being." It was like, yeah, but unfortunately, here's the problem with just allowing that argument all the time. And I don't know why people do that. You're the one who gets as a woman, you're the one who gets to decide who gets access to the box, right? Like we don't decide all of that. We just kind of go where we go where we're wanted, right? That's I've always thought the male role is kind of interesting because it's like everyone thinks we have all this power. But it's like, yeah, but that's only when we get a bunch of assets and money and influence and power and when we stay in a gym for like 3 or 4 plus years, right? Then it's noticeable. But just the average run of the mill guy, he's kind of wallpaper. He's no one really knows he exists. Um, which I don't know. People might take this wrong, but I kind of understand why guys do a bunch of crazy stuff. um, why they do crazy things because at least when you do the crazy things, you're on the news and people know you exist. But when you're just a run of the mill, regular, normal guy, you're not getting attention like the chick on Instagram or things like that. You're just kind of this person that exists, and maybe every month or two, maybe you get some sort of semblance of attention. You see where I'm going with this? Anyways, so let's just go back to the scenario. You're in a relationship, and the woman, she monkey branches to the next guy, and then you're like, "What the heck? What just happened?" Um, but this could be after you actually tried to deal with the situation, tried to fix it, tried to solve it, stuff like that. And some of these topics I kind of go over again and again and again, but um, it seems like the the people who are actually like the actual real romantics are men, right? You look at culture, you look at the movies, you look at like the Notebook and all of that stuff. The people who actually take the actions and make all the mistakes and are willing to look foolish and are willing to look foolish in order to actually win a person back or fix something or something like that. These are guys, at least in my experience. Now I will throw in an exception that, like, for the women who are in relationships with guys and it's like their first relationship or second relationship, I think that's where you might actually get a lot more effort from the women. But as you go up in the count and the amount of relationships, I think it starts to become business for the women, where it's like, oh, it's just business as usual. There's this saying that women are pragmatists disguised as romantics, and men are romantics disguised as pragmatists. And I'm starting to realize that that is probably more true than not. I can remember my ex would say things like she's a hopeless romantic or something like that. And I thought it was interesting to hear because, in light of her actions, I was kind of like, well, maybe you are this hopeless romantic, but your actions are very cold blooded. They're like a Spetsnaz special forces soldier, right? Like like no emotion, just 100%, very ice cold, quick and swift with no empathy. Um, it kind of rubbed me wrong, and I would also say it probably made it difficult to actually fathom being in another romantic relationship after the fact. um, Made me think that being in a relationship with a woman was kind of like being in a relationship with a warring tribe, right? Like you can pretend like you're happy and everything, but you can never give away any secrets, and you can never fall asleep with both eyes. Uh, Maybe that could be a good video. I don't know. It seems like women, when they get in relationships, uh, their love for the men that they're with is like this calculus. It's this calculated thing where certain variables have to be there, otherwise it stops making sense. And yes, we have variables, but it seems like men have less variables, and we're also less inclined to need, like, it's almost like our tolerances are wider and theirs are thinner, right? But you notice, even with attraction, physical attraction, it's the same thing. The tolerances for physical attraction for women are a lot thinner than it is for men. Men, their ideas of attraction are a lot broader. um, you could say that this has to do with the amount of options um, that we have on both sides. Men having the least amount of options, women having the most amount of options. By options, I mean the amount of partners that are available to them on the fly, right? Any given day. So, who are the true romantics, and what do I mean by romantics? By romantics, I mean people who actually love, meaning the closest to unconditional love as you could get. Meaning, yes, both sides are going to have a condition, but then who's going to be the most reasonable, and who's going to actually fight the hardest for the person that they're trying to be with, trying to stay with. Who's going to forgive? Uh, who is actually going to put in the most effort for a particular relationship? I mean, I heard from a woman that women don't put in effort. They just kind of expect a guy to take them out to movies and take them out to go and eat and go on dinner dates and things like that. Um, which I get it. Being wined and dined makes you feel important, makes you feel significant, also makes you feel taken care of, which is, I mean, I would say that's an important need for women, is to feel safe and secure. So I understand at least the underpinnings of it and why it's attractive. The only issue is there's an element of narcissism that makes it difficult to fully digest, um, in a way that's seen as, you know, it makes it difficult to palate from a purely moral standpoint. Anyways, the true romantics, I believe the true romantics are men, and I believe that a lot of the men who are romantic end up dying to this romance. And I think that uh, I'm starting to understand why having the least amount of partners for both of the sexes, and also setting up a society where people can actually meet the opposite side, and to where it's presumed that you matter, and it's presumed that you're trying to establish something decent and long term, is actually important. It's good. Um, yeah. Uh, well, obviously, I didn't want to go over 10 minutes, but it is over 10 minutes. But um, a couple of more things I could throw out just to demonstrate. I think many times guys have to initiate things, which I think initially is perfectly fine, but even like halfway through the relationship, the woman will end up saying things like, "Hey, I want to go to, or I want to do dinner dates and stuff like that," and she's just kind of this passive observer, and the guy is actively always seeking her validation through taking her to do these things, which on its face, it's all right if she's in a very feminine, nurturing, loving kind of energy. That I think is very nourishing, and I think more men should experience women in their femininity. Unfortunately, that is kind of being destroyed. So it's like I don't even think the average guy has even seen actual femininity. So it's kind of disturbing. Um, that in itself is disturbing. But yeah, I guess the only real account I could give is just of my relationships. When I've tried to court women and take them on dates and stuff like that, it hasn't really been my experience that they were demonstrating any type of romanticism. The romance was on my side. It was more of a fantasy that I had than it was for the women, and that's where I'll kind of agree with uh, like the psychics guy. I kind of agree with him that uh, men are the romantics, the pragmatists, the people who are very practical and very logical about the decisions they make with mates. That's women. Uh, which is funny, right? Because we're kind of raised to think that men are the shallow ones, but no, actually, men aren't actually the shallow sex. The shallow ones are actually women. Women are actually more shallow, and they actually require more of their partners in order for them to be chosen. Um, they're more shallow and they're more fickle, which for me is a relief, right? Because I always thought I was a POS because I looked at women and thought their bodies were attractive and things like that. But really, that's not a POS. It's like everybody looks at everyone's bodies to determine if they're attractive enough for them. The only difference is when you're a male and you do it, you're seen as like this vile, awful creature just because the world hates men. Um, but yeah, that's all I got for now. The true romantics.